Remind you guys that this whole event has been a collaboration between the Metuchen, Montgomery, Westville, Summit, and our market center in Clifton, New Jersey. So we're very pleased to bring to you Listing Mania in today's panel. But I also want to remind you guys just of next week in terms of some classes that are coming up. We have to speak that on Monday, Linda McKissick is going to be teaching her class 10 listings every month. And then Jason Abrams has the open mic on Thursday to just talk about listings. So make sure to sign up for that. All right, so guys, in this panel, you're going to hear the backgrounds of top agents that work with investors and our investors themselves. You'll hear how listings are a natural byproduct when you work with investors or as an investor agent. Listen and learn about the different approaches on how these agents continue to build wealth through their businesses. There are many themes when it comes to to the topic of investing, and so we're mindful of including tips for agents starting from scratch on this topic. I also want to address the balance of agents on the panel. When our offices started planning this listing mania, in the panel, the goal was to have at least 3 of the 5 offices represented. And as you can see, it ultimately resulted in 2 offices being represented, which speaks to the opportunity for growth on this topic. We appreciate each of our panelists who bring their own backgrounds to this exciting topic of investments. So thank you for the participating market centers, and we're ready to get started. So I want to pass the mic to David Leung, who's going to introduce himself, and then head on to John.
Perfect. So I'm so excited to um, do this listing mania with everyone, and I want to welcome everyone. Um, I myself and my wife, we're the owners of the Clifton Market Center, and we have our own investment company. It's called Results Only, and 18 years I have been in this business as a real estate agent, running teams, flipping and holding properties. Right now, we're doing a lot of investor coaching and mentoring. And one of my favorite jobs is both of them being a husband and a father. So I'm looking forward to really hearing what the panelists have to share with us today. So, but while we're on this topic here, I wanted to introduce John Palumbo from Freedom Mortgage. I've known John for many years now, and I'm really excited to have him here because John truly understands the language of real estate investing from the financing standpoint. He's the branch manager of Freedom Mortgage in Totowa, New Jersey, and he's licensed. His company is licensed in the following states: California, Connecticut, Florida, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. And he's a mortgage and market expert in the local New Jersey area, and he's a phenomenal father and husband. So, John?
Yes, thank you, David. I appreciate the intro. It's really nice to be here with you guys as well. I'm very excited to learn from some of the experts in our field here. And I've been involved in real estate investing myself. Although I'm a mortgage banker now for close to 19 years, I'm doing mortgages. I'm with Freedom about 6-7 years. I developed a niche in the investor world. I really took a liking to it, just kind of in the beginning doing deals for investors and seeing the numbers and I'm a math guy, crunch numbers. I look at the profits that they're making, and it really piqued my interest to really learn it. And I started investing as a young kid. I started buying properties for passive income, buy and holds. I started flipping properties, and it's really the best thing I've ever done to establish my future. So I'm really excited to learn. It's always nice to hear how people get involved in real estate investing and learn on some of the tricks that they do. And there's really, the market's so changing right now with everything going on. It's always good to just gain the knowledge that you need. Now, when it comes to part of the reason I'm on this panel is because the financing side of it is a very important part of real estate investing. One of the main things when I speak to an investor and I ask them the question, what are some of the challenges that you deal with as an investor? They always tell me two things. Number one, getting deals. And that's really where this panel is going to really dive in and talk to you guys about that. And the other part of it is the financing, how to get financing. And there are three main ways that, real estate investors generally will go with financing. I'll briefly touch on it. You have your hard money lenders that are out there, which is a fast, easy way to get money. You can close on those transactions in 7 to 10 days. Really a great source of money to move quick and close fast. It's expensive, but it's very effective, and you get it very quickly, which is good. The second part of that is your private investors that are out there, friends, family, business partners, people that want to invest their money into you and into your projects, where they'll get a return back on their investment. And, after you close the deal, you sell it or you keep it, whatever it be. That's another big source of funds. And then lastly is your traditional financing, which is what we do. Okay. In the traditional financing world, there are many different options when it comes to investing, but it's important that you guys work with a bank that is investor friendly and someone who is knowledgeable, because the language of investors can be very different from your typical traditional type of mortgage. When you hear terms like wholesaling, JVing, most mortgage people don't understand that terminology very well. Okay. And one of the things that I've also specialized in doing over the years is renovation lending. Freedom is very big on renovation lending. People don't know that for investors, there are options out there to actually buy a home, renovate it, and still get similar to what's called a 203K, for example. And it's for investors. So there's a lot of really good products that are out there. And it's important that you sit down with a mortgage person and talk those options out, because the traditional lending world might be a good option. Takes longer. There's more paperwork involved. It may take you 30, 45 days to close, but very cheap money and really a good option. So you, as a savvy investor, have to always understand what it is that's out there so you can best suit your needs. Don't automatically go to hard money or traditional money. You have to know what is the goal, how fast you have to close. Do you qualify for a traditional loan? And leave your options open, and then you can be decide on which is the best way to go. So I'm excited to be here. If you guys have any questions, we're also going to be raffling off. Freedom is going to be giving 5 $100 gift cards that you guys can use towards your marketing. Okay. And we'll be throwing out some questions for you. Okay. And the first people that can, answer those questions correctly, we will go ahead and give those prizes too. Okay. So if I may, I'll start with my first question. Okay. If someone can, you guys have access to the chat. Okay. So if you could just put it into the chat here. My first question will be, what is a wholesale deal? Okay. If someone can answer, what is a wholesale deal? Excellent.
I think we need Jeopardy music at this point.
Oh, exactly.
A lot of good answers here. Excellent. Okay. All right, good. A lot of good answers here. Okay.
I like it. I like it.
All right. So a wholesale deal is where a buyer basically gets a property under contract and then reassigns it to an end buyer. So they never actually close on the property. Okay, that's a very common strategy, which the panel will touch on. And who was the winner on that one? Who was the first person to respond on this one? Let's see. Okay. Let me take a look here. Going through all right.
Thanks, John.
Yes, Tez Roro.
That's what I thought.
Tez Roro is the first winner. Thank you, Tez. Perfect answer.
And one more.
Yep. The second question is, I'm going to ask, what is an exit strategy out of a hard money loan? What is an exit strategy out of a hard money loan? Perfect.
He's a panelist.
Perfect.
What, John?
Excellent.
I love
Yeah,
it.
you guys know your stuff here. Hard money, it's very important when you take a hard money loan. And Freedom doesn't do hard money, but I'm happy to refer you guys to good hard money guys. Again, Freedom's not, it's not, traditional lending isn't always the best option. Hard money may be. So when it comes to hard money, you have to have an exit strategy. There's a short-term loans. Hard money you get out of either by selling the property or you refinance off the property. Those are the two main ways that you can get off of out of a hard money loan. Generally, they're about 6 months to a year's time frame. All right, so great job, guys. The winner on that one, let's take a look. All right. Yep, Peter Klein. Peter Klein's the winner on that second prize.
Peter can't win. He's a paddlist.
God, I cheated. I'm so sorry. I just like I had to answer with the music playing.
That's familiar. We have Adrian Salvador was the next person that responded. Good job, Adrian. You're the winner of the prize.
Excellent.
Guys, thank you for your time. I'm going to pass it on to the next person here. Thank you, guys.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, John. Well, listen, guys, now we're going to introduce each of our panelists, and they're going to give us a little bit about their background, number of years as an agent, what you did prior to joining KW, and if you're an investor. All right, so we're going to start off with Peter Klein, who was about to win that prize.
I'm sorry, and John, I will make sure we find another way to spend $100 together. The reason I answered one was to win the $100, but also to talk about the need to understand the language of our business of investing. And as a real estate agent, we spend a lot of time in our words versus when we're working with investors. It's a whole nother lexicon. I got licensed back in 2006 because I was a real estate developer, and I never practiced real estate as a realtor until I got relicensed back in 2016. And in between, I was buying and selling properties for my own account. I worked for a development firm. I bought my first property at 24, and within 2 years, my monthly mortgage payments was 3 times my monthly salary because I was over levered, but I had rental income, and I used that to then pay it off. The other thing I'll say is John and David had the loving husband, loving father. That's missing from mine because my son now is at home by himself doing virtual schooling. But he did text me, so I think I'm okay. So I do love him as well. I work in the Metuchen office. They call me the agent of agents because when people have questions, I'm a resource to answer those questions.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing. All right.
Perfect. So our next panelist, India, is Michelina Perino. Mickey, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, guys. Welcome, everybody. My name is Mickey Perino. I am a wife and mother of 2 girls. I actually started my own business with my brother for over 35 years. I'm a hairdresser and we own a hair salon, which we've been very successful, even in COVID with the slowing down of business for a few months, but we're back in full swing. I became an agent in 2004. And I've been with Keller Williams for going on my 12th year in February. I first did a flip, unbeknownst to me in 2005. My brother and I bought a condo, and a month later we sold it for like an $89,000 profit. It was amazing. And that's where I really started getting my interest in investing. Just by my knowledge of being a great agent and knowing a market area and value, that has helped me. 2014, I actually met one of my business partners and bought my first multifamily. And that really interested me, building wealth for future with other people paying down my mortgage. I also am a capper for the last 8 years, going on 9, hopefully soon, Circle of Excellency. And I run a mentor program for the last 2 years with new agents, trying to get them into production and being a great agent. And I'm also the director of seminars for Results Only. And that's it.
Fair enough. All right. Thomas, we are ready for you. Please share a little bit about your background.
How you doing? My name is Thomas Vocera. So I am with Keller Williams Team Realty in Clifton. I've been an agent. It's going to be going on 3 years. It's about 2.5 years now. Before I was a real estate agent for the past 20 years, I've been an executive chef and a restaurant owner. I've had 5 restaurants over my career. Started out in Atlanta, Georgia with my first restaurant, and moved my way back up to New York and went to culinary school to refine my talent, and opened up a 80-seat restaurant and bar in New York City in the Gramercy area. Ran that for a while, and from that restaurant bloomed into a catering company, a fast casual restaurant in New Jersey, and a corporate dining business. And back in 2016, I decided it was time to get out of that business, and I sold that business and moved on to the corporate catering world, and actually ran 13 units in Newark Airport for a company called OTG. I was their fast casual director and was running 13 different concepts at one time in the airport. So it was really a high volume chef more than anything else. And then, decided that, investing was really for me, and the real estate agent business was for me. I'll talk a little bit later on about some of my past experiences in real estate that got me really interested in it.
Perfect. Well, welcome, Thomas.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for sharing, everybody. So now it's time for the panel conversation and questions to each of the panelists. So we're going to start off with Peter, and the same question is going to be applicable to everyone, to all of our panelists, but we're going to start with Peter. So pretty much you all started your pathway differently in how you started to work with investors. Some of you were investors before you got your license, and some the pathway was becoming an investor after being licensed. In the end, all 3 of you ultimately are agents who work with investors and are investors yourself. What did that start look like for you, Peter?
So I think as a New York City resident, it was tough writing that rent check every month. And when I bought my first apartment, it was a chance to become a homeowner. And then I bought the apartment next door, so I became a landlord. And then I wound up investing in a Hamptons property that we would rent out during the summer. And I realized that if you could do the math, there was an opportunity to, as Mickey said, to have other people pay your mortgage. And so very early on, I realized that passive income wasn't a full-time job, which is great when it's passive. And while I was adding value by doing renovations, while I was doing the maintenance and managing the properties, it wasn't completely passive, but it was a way where I was able to add value by being involved. And that led to continuing to analyze and invest, buying both properties, tax liens, distressed mortgages. And I used the analytical process of understanding the numbers, as John said, that he loves the math, to then put money to work, both my own money, and then I raised money to put others as well. And I usually do anywhere from 10% to 25% of my own, and everything else is leveraged with others. So I would say my path started in analysis, went to financing, and then at some point I actually became a general contractor. So it was full cycle.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing, Peter. So, Mickey, what about you? What was your start like?
I think my start was when the first flip that I did with my brother, like it kind of enlightened me on what I could do to add some wealth in my life. Even though it was a flip, I really started learning about how to add value to the product we eventually were going to sell, like light renovations, like maybe painting, redoing the cabs with paint and changing the knobs, changing the countertops. And then, when we sold it, we were making a really great return on our money. So that kind of really interested me. And I really started getting into home staging and learning about that. I had a friend who was actually a TV designer, and I learned a lot from him, how to stage homes by using like the client's own furniture, maybe putting covers on a sofa, making it look aesthetically nice, changing paint colors. So I trained with him for about 5 years. And that really started my interest on my pathway. And then actually meeting my first partner about the hold property and about building wealth for something for my future to have for kids' college, whatever, my retirement, and that's really started I think my pathway.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. So,
Thank you.
all right, Thomas, round it out. Tell us, what was what does your start look like in terms of where you are now?
Sure. So I originally started buying a condo for myself when I moved from Atlanta to New York to start my culinary career. I bought this condo. It was a great deal. It was in Staten Island where I grew up, and it needed renovation. So it really didn't start out as a flip, but it turned into it because bought the place, needed some renovations. And funny story, I ended up having a trip to Las Vegas with some friends of mine for a seminar, and I needed 15,000 to fix this condo. I won $11,000 on the crap table on this trip. And I was like, this is incredible. My whole flip was done off of a Vegas night at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was incredible. So put that money right into it. Had to give it to like 7 different people in order to get it back on the airplane because I didn't want to pay the taxes on it or whatever. But we won't talk about that. That was a long time ago. But ended up putting the money into it. And 6 months later, I was just talking to somebody who was a real estate agent, and they were like, "Let me list it." And I ended up making like $60,000 on this house in 6 months. And I was like, "This is incredible," So fast forward a little bit, opened my restaurant, and I always had it in my head. I was like, "Look how much money we can make on this." And I ended up connecting with a good friend of mine who lived in South Jersey, and we started doing tax sales in South Philly. And we ended up buying a total of 17 properties and 1 post office.
I know about
And the
that.
post office we ended up knocking down and building 6 row homes on it. And the tax sales that we were buying, we were picking them up for like $10,000-$15,000. They were 3 families that we were converting back to single families, and we started flipping those. And we had our problems, some issues with some financing stuff, but I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was just naive to it because I was really new. So overall, it was a good experience. It wasn't as lucrative as I hoped. I ended up selling 6 lots just off to another developer who I watched him because he was a really experienced developer. He ended up putting houses on that property in 4 months. He put up modulars on them. He sold every unit, and then houses were being resold before I was even done with mine. So I was like, now I could see the difference between someone who is very experienced and someone who was just an amateur at this. And I knew, okay, I like this. I need to focus on my restaurant business, but I need to learn. And I didn't have the time then to learn how to do it. So this was back in like 2003 and 4. So I put my real estate development career on pause because I had to focus in on my restaurants, and just did that. And then I knew when I sold my restaurants coming back in, I was just like, okay, I know that past experience, and I understand that education is going to be everything for me. And and that's how I came to Keller Williams.
Beautiful. Thanks to everybody for sharing. So such unique stories. Everybody has their own story, and there's something to pull out of each one of them. So, David, you got it.
Awesome. Yeah. So we got a really powerful question that we're asking our panelists today, and that is, in order for agents to add listings from investors to their productivity, what would you guys say is the top 1 or a couple sources that you guys use in order to add investor listings to your productivity? So, Mickey, why don't you start us off?
That's a great question. Yes. There's many different sources that I would use to get listings. What I like to do is actually leverage listings through other high level agents because I am an investor, right? So I definitely will be their buyer. I talk to agents all day long about, what I'm looking for in my product, what my niche is, how they could help me add to my productivity for the month, because I try to buy at least a few properties per month is my goal. Another way that I look for adding listings is through my vendors, bankruptcy attorneys, divorce attorneys, movers, anybody that's in our line of work, title people that will know if somebody is in a distressed situation or wants to sell. Another great way is mailers, market to people that you are looking to purchase. And then you could actually go see the property. And if it's not going to be something I'm going to buy myself, then I'm an agent. So then I come in as the agent, and then I would list their property as a retail property. So those are some of the few ways that I try to obtain listings.
Awesome.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, thank you. Peter, what about you?
I think just like people hire homeowner real estate agents that we know and like, a great way of meeting investors is the network of investor meetings between meetups and other networking events. You can spend almost every weeknight at a different event. It becomes a smaller world when you're geographically focused, but those investors want to get to meet you, the realtor, because we add another set of information to their arsenal. We're providing them the ARVs, we're providing them information about acquisition pricing. We can connect them to the vendor network that we have in terms of lenders and others. So I would say a great resource for meeting the active investors is becoming involved in the network community where they're out and about, and there's always drinks. So it's not a bad way to meet new people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Are you doing it online, and were you doing it in person before?
I was doing it in person before. The online world has taken over the Zoom calls. It's not nearly as productive for meeting new people, but eventually I hope we're going to get out of our homes and offices to get back to the bars and the restaurants. But it's also finding those folks in the Zoom calls and then reaching out. Someone said they had a new flip in Totowa. Send them a note and send them some recent sales. Most investors want data. That's our business as an investor. And as a real estate agent, we have data they don't have. So I find it helpful to continue to communicate with, have you seen this one that just sold around your current project? Are you looking for more projects in that same town? And by sending them data, I am now becoming a resource for them to grow their business.
I love that. The investing world is, that is, as an agent, you have the resources that a lot of them don't have the access to, and it's very high value what you just told us.
I try. The other thing is it's an ongoing relationship. Listings usually come from investors if you help them find the deal. And so while this is about a listing mania, how to find listings, it's also about helping those investors find their next project. I would say that the majority of investors realize that if you're working for them to find deals, they'll reward you with that listing, which may not be what we want to hear. We just want the listings, but finding them the properties is a great way of becoming their listing agent down the road.
Perfect. Thomas?
Yeah, so for me, a lot of the sources of listings are actually coming from our own little ecosystem that we have created. Because I'm out there looking for listings, from wholesalers. I'm looking at a lot of off-market stuff. But what that ends up doing is it brings those off-market deals into my platform. And in turn, I have investors that want to do buy and hold, but we also have investors that are looking to flip. So within our own little platform, I'm able to create my own listings that way. And that's how, an agent that works with investors really ends up growing their listing business, because there's plenty of investors out there that just want to flip. They don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to collect rent. They don't want any of that stuff. They just want to buy. They like what they see. They might be handy. They might be GCs, because we're talking to all of them through the same way, like Peter said, networking events and things like that. I'm really heavily into networking with, more organized networking like BNI. I'm a big supporter of that group, but we're bringing these deals in. So if I'm bringing in 50, 60 deals a year, I would say 20 of those are going to be flips. So I'm organically creating my own listings. And it's really important to have that whole ecosystem of all the different sides, and make sure you're not pigeonholing yourself into one type of investor client.
Perfect. Perfect. So how do you guys translate it into a database that you guys use in order to nurture and push your business forward? What kind of database system or model you guys are using in order to do that, to nurture or to even find and feed it? Go ahead, Peter.
I was going to talk about my Facebook groups, which is a little bit embarrassing, but it is a way of nurturing and meeting other investors. I belong to over 900 Facebook groups with 9.4 million members. But within that, 210 of them are just for real estate investors. And that's for wholesalers. That's for people who are contractors. That group of Facebook groups with about 2.6 million members, not all unique, is a way of not only communicating, but watching what's going on in the market. We pull them into our database. We run a CRM. We're using Mojo right now and migrating over to KW Command. But we keep a list of what we call an investor-ready properties. I define an investor-ready property as something that needs to be repositioned. It needs to be repaired. It needs to be subdivided. It's something where an investor can come in and it's ready for them to make a profit. We monitor about 600 properties that are active on the MLS, and we share that database with our investor clients. In that way, we've done the work of going through the MLS each week and finding an investor-ready property, and then sharing that data with our client base, organized by county, organized by price point, organized by single family versus residential. But by tracking it, we're able to say when someone goes, hey, I'm looking for an investment property in fill in the blank, let me send you what's active. Or let me send you what's expired and didn't sell. Or let me send you, what we think is a neighboring property. So we're using the MLS to identify properties and then curating it and then sending it out to our database of clients.
Is it easy to extract data from Facebook?
From Facebook.
In order to nurture?
So it's the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. I think if you're just putting up posts that don't have value, you're not going to get much back. We try to make sure that we're putting posts of value. If it's numbers on a flip showing the before and after pictures, if it's showing what a trend is in a market. Investors want to know where the trends are on the regular homeowner properties because they're going to buy, fix, and resell. So they want to know where the current market is as well. The more data we share with these finance people who are investors, it allows them to realize that it's not just buy it, put some paint down, fix a kitchen. There's more to it. And we try to be that resource to provide them that information.
Got it. That's perfect. Thomas, what about you? About how are you gathering database, clients, listings? What's the source you're using in order to nurture?
So we're putting things in the CRM. We use Command. Being Keller Williams agent, it's a lot easier just to use Command because it's a great resource. But a lot of what we're doing on a daily basis is basically underwriting deals that we're finding on social media constantly because a lot of the novice wholesalers, because there's a lot of them out there, because they're learning that they're part of these neighborhoods that we're investing in, and they're finding deals just from friends and family, but they don't actually know how to analyze the deal. They don't know how to price structure the deal. So when you're going through social media, which is probably right now one of the most powerful tools for investors, you'll take those properties in and you have to do the underwriting on it because most of the time the deals don't work. They're putting it out there. They're talking to the homeowner, and the homeowner is telling them what they want, and that's what they're trying to sell for and add their $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on top of it. But they're not even taking into consideration the rent. So we're actually having to educate the wholesalers back again, sending them back out to the homeowner, getting them to renegotiate their contract or assignment, and then coming back in. And then once we have it there, we'll put it out to all of our platforms that we utilize and make the deals happen that way. But it's a lot of hard work on our side because, you could get caught up being inexperienced, getting stuck in a property that'll never cash flow no matter what you do. And I tell you, one of my biggest tools that I use on fly is actually John Palumbo's app. I go to his app all the time. We can quickly underwrite a deal just from a mortgage, insurance, and tax perspective from his app. And I do it all the time. And I'll share it with some of our mentees, use this app. It's a great tool. But if you understand just the basics of the deal, you're going to be able to educate the wholesalers or the young wholesalers out there. Because trust me, there's plenty of very, very savvy wholesalers that really know their business. And your deals move very smooth. We have a couple of them that we work with now that the deal comes in, they know my criteria, they know my numbers, they show me the deal, we'll almost immediately put it under contract, and we know the deal is going to run smooth. And then there's other ones that we really have to hold their hand and get and work them through it.
Perfect. Mickey, so what about you?
Yes, about getting my database, I believe a lot is through education and seminars. I believe educating the public to teach them about what we do and how we do it really, really makes them understand and wants them to learn about what we do. We also have an investor consultation that we do every Monday night because of COVID, where we're not at the seminars anymore face to face. So we decided to still educate the public through investors consultation, going over our niche. How do we find properties? How we help agents get listings? How, we want to help everybody, how to raise money, capital. And then we have a coaching program that actually helps any individual, whether it's an agent, non-agent, to build wealth in their future through investing, long-term buy and hold. So definitely education and seminars are a great way to build your database.
That is a great segue, because the next question is about, your education, and each one of you have spoken, a little bit about that. But, what would you say are the foundational educational resources that an agent would look for so that they can speak the same language as investors?
You asking me?
Well, actually, it's back to Thomas.
Okay, go Thomas.
Well, education with an experienced investor is key. For me, I knew that when I became an agent, I seen what David was doing on an investor level from just being in the office. And for me personally, I started coaching with David back in December, and that really gave me the education. I learned that I wanted to do this business first and foremost from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. That kind of stuff is vital to understand the basics. And it's funny because more and more the quadrants that he talks about, the 4 quadrants, are coming up more and more online. You see it all the time. Everybody's starting to really understand that the education is the basis for this. So they're all starting to read these books. But you have to spread yourself out and a lot of reading, because it doesn't only have to be real estate generated, that reading, motivational, habit forming, all of those things come into play. But for me, how I excelled as quickly as I did in 2020 and during COVID, is solely because of my coaching with David.
All right, fair enough. All right, so in terms of educational resources, next one up is Mickey. In terms of just education, just the foundation, in terms of things that an agent would do, whether it is picking up the whole book, picking up the MREA book, other educational resources. What would you say?
Right. Well, first, I think you have to decide, if you're an investor, what type of investor do you want to be? Are you going to be a flipper? Are you going to be a buy and hold for the long run, 2 to 4 families? So I think that's what you have to decide, what is good for you in your future, what you have in mind for that, instead of goal for that. The next thing is to model with somebody. Find somebody that is highly successful in the field that you want to get into investing. So if it's buy and hold, obviously there are great programs out there. There's coaching. I myself, along with Thomas, coach with David. because my goal is to buy 55 properties in the next 2 years, buy and hold for the long term. So knowing my goals and how to get there, I think you need to model with somebody that's done it successfully, because success leaves clues. So that's how I started researching and getting into what type of education I needed to get to hit my goals. So whether you're a fixer flipper or just hold or just flipping, model yourself after somebody, find the courses and education and classes you need to get there. Coaching is a must. A mentorship is a must. Everybody does it. Lawyers do it. When you become an attorney, right? You have to do your attorney, like you're just the gopher, you're the power for like 2 years. Doctors do an internship. You have to have some type of mentor and coaching to be successful.
All right, so Mickey, thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to say this in terms of perspective of the agents on the call, because not every agent is actually of mindset to start investing right away, right?
They
And
still have
so-
to learn, right?
Exactly. And so they've got to learn. So on that side of things, going through some type of coaching or studying those resources are going to help you to be able to understand how to speak the same language as investors. And then I guess it's the hope that, from going through all of that, one of the things that is great for agents is the ability to, be part of the statistic where you actually are one of the small percentage of agents that are actually investors as well. So
Yeah, attend seminars, read books. I mean, you have to do this background and research, because you have to know what type of investing do you want to be good at. Like, you're not going to be a flipper plus, I mean, you do diversify and do both, but to be somebody highly successful, you do one niche and you do it really well.
Fair enough. Good stuff. All right. So Peter, what about you in terms of thinking about educational, foundational resources?
I,
I will tell you, one of the key tools that I have in my toolbox are my work boots. And I think if you want to work with investors, you start showing up at properties to be fixed in penny loafers or wingtips or stilettos, you're not a real estate investor for investors. You have to have work boots, and you have to be able to go into basements and crawl spaces and understand from a perspective of they're going to buy what we may not call as consumer ready, and they're going to put investing in. So you as their advocate, you as their advisor, you've got to be able to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And so we talk about educating and learning the language, that's talking the talk, but to walk it, it's literally walking through investment properties. I have a stick somewhere here. When I walk into a abandoned property, I am the loudest real estate agent you've ever heard. Hello, is anybody here? Because you'll walk into vacant properties and there are people living there, not legally. So part of our job as advising investors is knowing what the opportunity is in a property. And that comes from walking through. When there's water in the basement, what's the source of it? We should know. If the panel has a mix of wires coming out of it, is that good or bad? Is there a sub panel? What does that mean? If you're looking at groundwater versus a faulty septic system, what does the septic system look like when you repair it? All of those things, believe it or not, are keys to an investor. Every investor I work with who buys the septic system, their first question is, what's the condition of the septic system? Okay, so how do you find that out? My next call is to the Department of Health, where you say, when was the last time this septic system was serviced? Those kind of things somewhat bleed into our business as real estate agents for owners, but for an investor, there's a different take. And literally my work boots are always in my car because I am going through basements and disgusting homes full of hoarder crap, because that's what an investor wants. They want the hairy projects, because when they shave it down, that's where the gold is.
Nice. Fair enough. You made me laugh, because in my past life I showed up with a pink suit on and heels, and I only did that once, and I learned I have to adapt to the environment so that you actually have credibility.
It's funny, India. We assume that a real estate agent looks like someone in a very professional looking outfit, and I always show up in work boots and jeans, because advising a client, I want to know everything wrong, because that's how we market the property. It's the same with investors. We want to know everything that's wrong so we can have a solution to it. We want to know what needs to be fixed, what's going to be a problem, where the give backs are going to be. That's really the key to advising investors, telling them what the risks are so they can build it into their model.
Fair enough. And through education, you get that knowledge on the ground. All right, fair enough. On to the next, David.
Yes. So, and that leads into the next question we actually have, because you know, as an agent, you kind of have to have as much full disclosure about what you're selling, right? Because if you don't know, how are you going to fully disclose to potential clients the product or the properties you guys are working on? So, you know, in terms of working with sellers that are investors, what would you say is the difference between how to nurture or work with sellers that are actual investors, let's say like a flipper, versus, you know, a traditional home seller who is just, you know, maybe they're transitioning in life, or just a normal, regular, traditional seller? What would you guys say is the difference for you in terms of the way you nurture and build your relationships? So, Mickey, why don't you go ahead?
For me, like, just thinking about the type of investors I work with, I usually have two types of clientels. I call them customer type 1 and customer type 2. The customer type 1 are the people that have never bought anything. They're kind of like a first time home buyer, and they're looking to get into their first investment product. Usually a buy and hold multifamily 2 to 4. I always go over what their goals are. I treat them as pretty much as I would leading and guiding them and explaining the process of a first time buyer. What could happen? What are things that are going to need repaired in a property? What would be your rents? Because having a background in a realtor, I know all these things. The ARV, what is the value? What is your net cash flow every month? What are your expenses? How to save for expensive? Are you going to property manage it? So it's a lot more time invested with somebody that's starting new. They might buy 3 to 4, 5 in their lifetime, and they're good. And then my other person is my actual investor. So he's a little bit more aggressive. He only cares about either if he's going to hold it or flip it, what is his return, what money I'm going to make him, how to get in and out of this deal super quick, because time is money. If they're a flipper, you got to remember they got holding expenses. If they're adding on levels, they got permits, or, you know, time is money for them. So we need to really understand how we're going to get things done in a very timely manner, hiring the right people to help them through attorneys, through vendors, title people, people that live in our world, that understand that time is their money, and we need to get them in and out of this deal ASAP so they can make a great return on their money.
Perfect. So you provide value up front before they actually become the seller.
Yes.
Yeah. Peter, what about you?
I think someone in the chat asked a question. You know, most investors don't work with only one agent, and that's true. You know, we're not married unless we are married to them. We're not married to our clients, and I think when we take offense at the fact that they're talking to multiple agents, we're going to lose them. We're only as valuable as the information we provide, and so that nurturing that Mickey talked about is providing them information, and it's not, I hate to say it, recipes and birthday reminders and such. It's market trends. It's discounts from vendors that are out there. It's how to better finance deals. I talked to someone the other day that's invested in 2 different properties, and he's looking to double that. And he's talking about the cost of money, and the carrying cost of properties becomes a huge impediment for a lot of investors. You know, 14% money can be hard. Well, once you get to a certain size, you can then have a portfolio. You can then start to borrow against a portfolio of income producing properties. He's like, what do you mean? And explaining that the process of marrying a lender, or at least dating them, allows you to borrow against not one, but multiple properties at a lower rate. You're now an institutional investor type where they can say, well, they've got 6 properties. We can now bundle that and make one loan against them. He was shocked. And then what I want to do is connect him to the right lender partner, someone like Freedom Mortgage or others that can then say, we'll work with you not for one deal, but for a series of deals. Our connections is how we best nurture. Connect them to information, to data, to resources. That's how you're going to keep the relationship strong.
Perfect. 100%. Relationship is key. Thomas?
Yeah, so when it comes to traditional home sellers as opposed to investor home sellers, emotion is taken out. When you have a traditional home seller, it's all emotional. This is the home that they raise their family in. This is the home that, every big, huge life event happens. So it's all emotional. We have to go in with a different hat on. We have to walk through the house and show them exactly what they need, show them what they need to do to their house. When it comes to our investors, it's all about the money. It's very cut and dry. You show them a return, you show them what they need to see. There is no emotion in there. It's business. When you have to separate the two, you have to understand that if you're going to transition over to an investor agent, it's different. Take the emotion out. Make sure you're very clear about what they're going to make on the deal, and make sure your numbers are really right on, because you don't want to start giving them these illusions of, a deal that they're going to make $100,000 on when really they're only going to make 50,000. And that's the reality. And I like to be very clear and honest with both sides. Don't get me wrong. Even though there is an emotional side, you have to be very clear with that traditional home seller that you could want what you want because of emotion, but you're not going to get that number. The market doesn't dictate it. It's the same thing on that side, but it's the delivery to the investor seller as opposed to the traditional seller that is going to win you the listing or win you the business from the investor.
Perfect. I like that. So India?
So guys, we all know that not all deals that are sold are found in the MLS. So as an agent, how do you find deals that are for investors that are not in the MLS? How do you, in terms of studying the market? I know we've talked about a couple of things in terms of studying the market, but how do you find deals that are not in the MLS? And so, if we start with Mickey.
One way you could do it, if you already, like myself, I already am an investor, and I usually buy to hold for the long run. But there are times when, like right now, the market is soaring and I'm selling inventory. So I would definitely call one of my investors and let them know that, there's a property not even on the MLS, and I would give them the information, the specs, what it generates, the ARV, all, very transparent with everything. And, we have a buyer pool. So that's how basically I would get inventory that's really not on the market yet, just through my own properties.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, you got that comes from a place of building it and having it.
Yeah, my own portfolio.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, and that's part of like what we do as a group. We have properties. There's things you're going to sell. There are things that you're going to hold. If it makes sense for you to start liquidating some of your inventory because the market is crazy right now. They're short of inventory and we already have the buyers.
Exactly. All right. Fair enough. Well, thank you, Mickey. So Thomas, I'm going to ask you the same question in terms of finding deals that are not in the MLS. And Mickey just brought up a point of, okay, well, there are properties that are out there that, I know about that I'm able to share. Kind of like, how does that happen?
For me, it's social media. I'm finding most of my inventory through social media platforms, through Facebook groups, things like that. And, just connecting with wholesalers on every level, whether they're, novice or experienced. I need to connect with all of them. And, things like this, investor calls and whatnot, it's all about your networking. Most investor deals aren't on the MLS, or most investor deals that are really solid deals that you're going to make, good money on won't be on there. So we definitely have to find other means. But I would say my best source is social media.
Fair enough. Thank you for sharing. And Peter, what about you? There he goes with them props. Got it.
You know what? It's actually driving. It's out in the market and seeing opportunities. The houses that are in disrepair, the houses that look like they're in need of someone to come and fix them up. It's literally pounding the pavement and seeing a property that says looks like a key property that an investor could come and make money. I drive the same way to work, and then every so often I switch it up because I want to see a different path. And I watch properties. You know, why is that listing gone? And now the grass isn't mowed. And is that in probate, or is that something that's in foreclosure? It's managing my time by finding deals that aren't on the MLS. There's no for sale sign. So, okay, why? Why is that property in its current condition? To then see if you can't get under control to list it or to pass it to an investor.
Fair enough. So I'm going to say, I'm just curious on this one. Kind of like an example would be maybe going through the RPR, the Realtors Property Resource, looking at the spreading out of what that map looks like in terms of distressed properties. Do any of you guys, I mean, some agents know about, and I know this wasn't part of the questions, but it's tied to kind of like what we were talking about, that some folks, will write letters, because as you described, you kind of like you drive around and you see properties. Well, are any of you guys writing letters to anyone that said, I can see that, your house, obviously you might be, looking to possibly sell, in the future? Do any of you guys try to approach it from that perspective?
They're driving for dollars. The next step is to connect to them, and that's the mailer you talked about. I got a call from a property owner 2 years after I sent the letter. They had gotten it. It was a distressed property that was somewhat tied up in court. When it finally cleared, they called me. I didn't get the deal, but I got the call back from my letter, and you just don't know. Most of the strategies that we're taught to nurture homeowners, home buyers and sellers, we apply to investors just with a little different twist. And I think too often we forget that it's, using my football analogy of blocking and tackling, it's the basics of connecting, providing information, following up, no different than when we're looking for listings from homeowners. We do that with investors, but just with a little different twist. An investor database may have guys like Mickey says who buy 1 or 2 properties a month or 1 or 2 properties a year. How do you manage them? Well, you just take notes, make sure that you're staying in touch with them in a different frequency. That guy who's buying 1 or 2 a month, you want to make sure you're talking to him one or 2 times a month. That guy who's buying 1 or 2 a year, that may be a quarterly call. No different than how we market to regular home buyers and sellers. The strategies or the processes are the same. How we implement them are a little different. And so don't think that's a whole nother way of doing business. It's just doing it consistently and providing value to our clients.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, guys. David, take it away.
Yeah. So how do you guys identify an investor that is serious? Like they're not looking to buy a $60,000 renovation job in Upper Montclair. So Peter, how do you do it?
I've got the crystal ball. You look into it, and if they're no, it's no different than a buyer consultation. There are questions that we ask to screen out the pretenders. When someone calls about a $60,000 investment, which I had happen, I said, well, you know what? Before we go see it, will you send me proof of funds? The guy had over $1 million in liquid assets sitting in an account. That looks like a real deal guy. Or another guy says, well, I don't know. Like, if you can't put together proof of funds, how serious are you? Good deals go away very quickly. So one of the key things that we look at is someone's ready to jump on an opportunity right away, which means they've thought through financing. They have a relationship with a lender already. They have a track record. So there's a couple of deals they've done. I'm not afraid of working with first-time investors, but they have to have done it the first couple steps before getting to me, which is understanding the process, having a team in place of how they're going to complete the renovation or the flip. Calling up because they watch some info commercial and says, well, it's easy to make money in real estate. You can kind of sniff those guys out pretty quickly. If they don't talk the language because they don't know, that's one thing. If they don't talk the language because they're trying to BS you, there becomes the waste of time.
Got it. There's a lot of those that watch TV one time and they want to know how to knock down the house today.
The
Yeah.
the HGTV investor is a huge waste of our time unless they take it another step. If you stop at the TV show, okay, that's one place. Once you go 2 more steps with the education things that Mickey and Thomas have talked about, how to add to that, then they become serious. But until then, it's a huge waste of our time if we're the only place they're getting information. I'm not afraid to help, but I can't be the sole source of education.
Got it. Thomas, what about you? How do you know this person is serious?
Well, like Peter said, questioning them and understanding the questions, and you'll experience it over and over again as you pre-qual more and more of the investors. You know, if they get it, if they get what you're saying, and they're answering the questions properly, because there's only so many questions you're going to ask them to understand if they know this business. And on the, you gotta sometimes roll the dice a little bit with them. You have to put in a little bit more time and maybe take them out once to see what they're all about. You know, there's plenty of clients that I have decided, you know what, you're not ready for this, and walk away, because I'll take them out once, but if their expectations are unrealistic, you have to recognize that immediately, or you're going to be wasting a lot of time. Same thing as a traditional real estate agent. You're going to know when a buyer, you know, you could take a buyer out to see 50 properties, and you understand it. You know, all right, we haven't honed in on exactly what they want, but we're still looking. You know, a good rule of thumb for me is, you know, my uncle, he was a commercial real estate agent, and when I was telling him I was getting into the business, he was like, as a commercial real estate agent, now it's different from investors, but he looked at it this way: if somebody tells me exactly what they want, and I show them 3 deals that are exactly what they want, and they still don't work with me, I cut them off. I cut ties with them, and I'm done, because they're really not serious. So he'll put a little bit of time in, but he has to recognize right away. You're trying to work with a lot of different people, and if you can't recognize that, you being a professional agent and investor agent, then you're going to be wasting a lot of time. So it's really focusing in on those questions initially, and then doing what you need to do to show them the way.
Got it. Awesome. Mickey?
Yeah, I agree with both Peter and Thomas about that. I take it a little bit more focused on a great criteria and profiling them. Like, I want to know their background story, what they've done in the past, what does their future look like with investing? What are they looking to do? How many properties are they going to buy per month, per year? Are they working in the business? Are they an agent themselves? I have very specific questions. What product are you buying? A 2 to 4 family? Or are you looking for flipping? What areas? What are you looking for in a return every month on your investment? It's just like being an agent. You have to have a precise buyer's consultation with them. I'm not going to waste my time and take them to a product they're not looking for, just with like a regular residential seller or buyer. If I present a great deal that makes them money, would they care about the return on investment? Like, everybody's fixed on that ROI. If I could show them a product where they're going to make $800-900 a month in net cash flow, do you really care where the area is? Do you really care of that money? The only thing you should be caring about is money in your pocket. So I really need a very, very strong profiling and consultation for me to understand how much are they going to pay for a 2-family? How much are they willing to pay for a 3-family? Has COVID affected now the pricing? Are you really going to spend more money, but you are going to be making this money back in your net profit every month? Are you concerned with having property that has equity built in it? Is that your criteria? Like, I need to know their story really, really well for me to help them and make my life and their life easier, because time is money for them.
Yes.
I'm
I
not
agree.
showing them things they don't want to invest in, right? We want them to buy, and we want them to make money. That's our responsibility to them as their agent.
And
So-
funny thing you should mention about COVID. So India,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is definitely the next question, but I'm gonna also segue and guys, we will have a Q&A session at the end, but I wanted to pose this one because it was tied to what Mickey was just describing, and it was Beatrice Blake that posed the question. And the question is, what do you do with an investor who wants to offer $30,000 less for less than the asking price for a deal? It's kind of like what you were just talking about. Before I asked that question, figured I'd ask you. And that's Mickey. That's to you, Mickey.
What would I do? Well, first of all, you have to produce ARVs to them, comps to them. So, and then understand it's just like a regular buyer's consultation. You need to explain and set expectations of the market, the current market situation we are in. We are in a market where 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I could have bought a product in Newark for like 170, 180. Guess what I'm buying it now? Even me as an investor, it's probably like 230, 240 for a two family. So I need to be very, very clear of the current market situation, what COVID has done to the market. It actually increased the sale. Regular residential product on the market is going anywhere from 30 to 50,000 over asking price. It's the same thing with investment. We are not getting the same deals we were a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. That's just the bottom line. I think, and then it's up to me whether I choose to work with that client, because I know he's not going to get the deal. Somebody else is going to get the deal, 30,000 under asking price. That's just me, my personal, how I've been trained as a realtor. It's the same thing with an investor. I'm not working with an unrealistic buyer or an unrealistic seller. Same thing with an investor to me. You want to be in it. If you're making money, if I could show you how to make money and put money in your pocket every single month, 600, 800 per month, do you really care what the purchase price is? As an investor, you shouldn't.
Exactly.
So that's how I probably would answer that.
Fair enough. And so I'm going to say, you within the answer, within how you answered that question, you actually answered the question that is next. All right. So
I'm sorry.
no, that's good, because it just was a good segue. All right. So I'm going to go to Peter, and the question is, how does the current economic situation with COVID and unemployment impact investors?
Where's the crystal ball? I think that as an investor, as Mickey's saying, it's about the dollars and cents. And if I'm going to make $600 in rent clear in free cash flow, is a deal worth doing. The challenge is, what's the market going to look like in 4 to 6 months after someone buys, fixes, and gets ready to sell or lease it at the end? And so the timeline of buying today and living there for 10 years is very different than someone's going to buy today and try to sell it or lease it up in 4 to 6 months. I was on a call with an investor talking about the market, and I don't know what's going to happen November 3rd. I don't think any of us have a crystal ball for that. But I think both candidates on the national level have not said we're against home ownership. So in a way, regardless of who the president is, we have a upcoming government in DC that's still supporting home ownership. So as an investor, that's reassuring. The other thing we've had happen is the Fed has said we're not going to change interest rates. So that sub 3% mortgage, and John can talk to this better than I can, that sub 3% mortgage is another stabilizer in the housing market. Unemployment was influenced by the stimulus package, which was providing people more money to stay at home than go to work. So if we put another stimulus in place where people are getting checks and we're keeping people out of the market because now they don't work, they can stay home and make more money, what does that do to the housing market? The short answer is, it depends. If you've got an investor with a 3 to 5 year timeline where they want to have a stabilized product generating free cash flow, they shouldn't care, because whatever they spend today, they can amortize that over the life of the investment. If you've got an investor who's going to put money to work today and need to have an exit strategy by March 1st, or he's going to lose money, maybe it's time to wait. A lot of smart money is betting the market's going to take a dip, which means housing prices with foreclosures and otherwise is going to make housing cheaper to buy in 6 months than today. We've got the whole issue with the I call it punting of your mortgage, with people that have delayed paying their mortgage and putting it at the end, and I'm blanking on the name of the term they use, forbearance. So what's going to happen when the forbearance period ends come year end for those folks that have not been paying their mortgage for 6 months? Right now, I'm asking more questions. You asked me a question, I gave you 10 questions back because we don't know. Our investor clients take financial risk. They bet on themselves. And right now, there are so many unknowns, it's hard. And we find a lot of guys are sort of waiting unless it's a longer term play. Because if you buy today, tell me where the market's going to be March 1st. I don't know. I don't know. And I think very few people do. If they do, bet against them because it's too hard to guess. And I think from our perspective, it's nurturing the relationships, understanding what the squeeze points are. Do you have to get your money out in 6 months or can you wait for 6 years? You know, if you're borrowing hard money at 14%, that doesn't have an extension after a year, what happens if you go to 13 months versus 12? That bankrupts a lot of guys. If you don't have enough cash in the bank to do the first draw, to advance the first draw for reimbursement, how does that impact you? There are a lot of financial considerations that investors take that we as realtors to homeowners don't even think about. And that becomes the key, understanding how financially an investor thinks differently than a homeowner.
Fair enough. Well said. And Thomas, round it out.
So what we like to do is when we're looking at a deal and we're analyzing it for our investor clients, we want to make sure that there's 3 roads that they could take. We acquire the property. First road you could take is you could leave this property as is. Don't put a penny into it, and it still cash flows. May not cash flow as much as you want, but it still cash flows. So they're protected on that road. The second road is we're utilizing the hard money, we're doing the renovation, and then we know because of the quality of the investor, he's going to be able to cash out, refi, and cash flow again because he's a buy and hold. And he's going to be able to cash flow his true numbers of why we made this investment to begin with. And that could be 6 months from now. The third road is tomorrow they could flip this house for a profit and know that we could still sell it because the price that we're acquiring it is that good of a deal that we make sure that they can do that. Maybe they're not going to make a lot of money, but they'll make something. So when you have those 3 roads in front of you, I'm not going to say anything will bulletproof a deal because, like you said, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen in November. We don't know what's going to happen with the market. But what that does is it gives a little bit more security that we know that at least we're protected in any which way we go. And, you know, as far as the unemployment goes, you know, one of the things that really impressed me that David and Maureen did, and I'll talk on an agent side, because I did this, you know, we did something, and a lot of Keller Williams agents know about Red Day. But one of the things that we did was we put food packages together for people in our area. But a lot of the people in the area were actually David and Maureen's tenants. And one of the things that David told us right when COVID hit was he was on the phone daily with his tenants, checking on them. And it showed the type of landlord that he is. And it really stuck with me that no matter what, we understand that people go through troubles and we know unemployment, this and that, and we did get the stimulus package and all of those things. But I think a lot of the understanding on the landlord or the investor side when you have buy and hold properties come from just that, you know, place of giving and place of understanding. And I know because I'm within the platform that David really didn't have a lot of problems when it came to, you know, people not paying their rent and everything. And it just shows the level of professionalism that they have when it comes to, you know, dealing with your tenants. You have to be that person that's going to go above and beyond. And that's what's always going to show you, you know, how your tenants will always protect you. And I learned that firsthand on one of my first few properties because we had a tenant in place on a property in East Orange. And all this guy really cared about was continuously having this place to live. He wasn't going to get thrown out. We went above and beyond and renovated his whole apartment. We didn't have to put a penny into his apartment. He was more than happy living there the way he was. I'm like the greatest landlord in the world right now to this guy because we did this for him. pays his rent 3 days early, and he pays it twice a month because he wants to break it up. But he knows that I'm there for him. I answer the phone when my tenants call me. All of those things go a long way when you're talking about investments, and you have to take those steps because you got to operate yourself as a landlord, as an investor, and then in the same working with your clients and your investors. Like during this call, I'm getting text messages from some of my investors. I'm not ignoring them. I'm texting them, telling them I can't talk right now, but we have to make sure that we take those steps to go above and beyond. It's the only way we're going to get through this pandemic, because this is an extreme situation. We don't know how long it's going to last, but it is an opportunity. There's a very, very big opportunity right now. You know, a lot of people turn around and say, oh, 2008 was an opportunity. There was a lot of mishaps that happened, you know, in 2008 that brought the housing market down. And I'm sure John could talk more to this. But the great part about what's happening right now, and it's not great in any stretch of the imagination, but banks, you know, and sometimes it can be very frustrating for us. John knows, me and John had a deal together that was very frustrating, but they're protecting themselves so much that these things don't happen. Like what happened in 2008 will happen. So this is a really, really great opportunity for investors to jump on board and get involved, you know, because you never want to, you know, have a pandemic of disproportion, you know, to have you be able to make a lot of money, but you have to recognize opportunities. I mean, there are people that even after 9/11 recognized opportunities and capitalized on it just because it's their business. So we're looking at it in all different perspectives. So by no stretch of imagination am I saying this is a you know, a good thing for us, but we have to recognize it's our business, and we have to, you know, be able to capitalize on our business and do what's right for our investors.
All right, so thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to say, in the interest of time, I want Davey is going to ask the last question, and then we're going to open it up for a Q&A because we still have a raffle. And I'm going to say this question also is John Palumbo was included in the rotation. All right.
Yeah. So this is, I think you guys mentioned it earlier, but I just want to ask again because of the importance of it. And for you and in what you do with your clients and your database, John, lead us off. How important is knowing your numbers for your clients, whether they're a buyer, investor, or whether they're an investor as a seller? Like, how important is the numbers for them in making decisions in their business?
Yeah, when a seller works with an agent or a buyer comes to you, they rely on you, right? They come to you for your expertise. And one of the things you really have to understand as an investor are the numbers. You know, is this in fact a good deal? And that's when it really comes into understanding the financing. So I did post the calculator there that Thomas mentioned. That's a very helpful tool. And just even an agent that doesn't have a whole lot of experience, we always ask the agents and say, hey, look, when you have an investor, when it comes to the numbers, refer them to someone, have a good network of people that you can work with and rely on who will steer that client the right direction. Go over those numbers with them. But at a very minimum, you as an agent should know the basics. Understand what a mortgage payment may be. Use the calculator, calculate your principal, interest, taxes, insurance. Understand how hard money works, where they're only paying interest only, you know, based on maybe 9, 10, 12% interest rates. It is very important to understand those because at the end of the day, when you're analyzing the deal, you want to understand your carrying cost. And that's a whole nother topic and you know, to learn on, but just understanding how to determine how much work a house may need, what your carrying costs are. If you go in with the wrong information, and sometimes, unfortunately, it's a learning experience, you know, with investors that they go in on their first deal or second deal, and sometimes they learn the hard way. But if you can do a lot of your due diligence from the very beginning and at least have a basic understanding of numbers or work with someone who does, I think you're really doing a good service to your client. That's really the way to approach it.
Awesome. Awesome. Peter, how important are the numbers to you and your clients?
I think as important as the numbers are to know, it's also to be comfortable with them. Our job as an agent is to facilitate the deal getting closed. And as long as you can handle the communication of numbers back and forth, we don't need to be the financial expert for our clients, but we need to be comfortable in asking them the questions they may have overlooked, as well as making sure they're considering, carry costs. They're considering how long it's going to take. They're being realistic about what the improvements are going to be required. If we can be a good advisor without knowing the specific numbers, but comfortable talking about numbers, I think we can serve our clients well.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thomas, what do you think about the numbers?
I think, knowing your basics is going to be very important, but always partnering with professionals. When you have John on a call, when you have an investor and, John is, open to talk to anyone and help you through that process. And it's always good with Zoom. You could get on a Zoom call, let him break down the numbers with you, and then let him break down the numbers with the client, because that's ultimately his job. John's the number guy. We're finding the deals. We're not the contractor. The same way I'll bring a contractor in to tell me the numbers of the cost. We know our rule of thumb. We know, okay, a kitchen's 10,000, a bathroom's 5,000. You could go through it and get a rough idea, but you're not going to hone in on it. The same thing with the finance side. I'll lean on John so much, just do it with me, work with me on it. But I still ultimately know, what the numbers look like, and your basics of the deal, you have to really understand, or else you're not going to sound professional and you're not going to be taken seriously, but always bring the professionals in with you.
100%. I like that. Mickey?
I totally agree with Thomas and Peter on this. And I think part of the expectation is in your your investor consultation with them, letting them know ahead of time that you guys are going to walk through the property together, bring a contractor with you, get an idea of the construction costs, what it's going to cost you to repair the properties, and then speak to John, who's your professional in the lending field, to help you learn about the mortgage, your payments, your interest, your taxes, your home. They should have a whole picture before entering a deal, right? That's your enter strategy right there. Knowing you're doing your due diligence, making sure that property is a legal 2 or 3 family, knowing the numbers from construction to closing costs to lending costs. And then there's no surprises. So being a great agent and doing your consultation, I think helps.
I think this is my favorite.
One thing I want to add to that, though, is John is a very experienced investor broker. In the same way we're telling you not all real estate agents are the same, not all mortgage brokers are the same, because there's so many, products out there that most, just residential mortgage brokers don't understand. And I've had these conversations with people, but when I talk to John, you might tell John's going to turn around. Well, no, don't do it that way. Use this 203K, and here's the advisor. We did one like that. He brought the advisor on. He made the deal happen, actually, because it would have never happened. Mortgage broker, in my opinion, maybe there's plenty out there, but you got to make sure that you qualify your mortgage brokers. And that's why vendors are really important, to make sure that they understand your business first and foremost before you start working with them, because there's plenty out there. You have an investor tell you, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Bank of America and let them do the loan. Forget about it. Your deal is, so that's why that's very important.
Thank you for sharing, Thomas. And I want to say that John Palumbo is certainly amazing. But I'm going to say as well, just like we say with our agents on just the traditional business, you have to have multiple vendors. It can't be just one that's on the list. So in other words, that gives you homework and you get different perspectives as well. So just wanted to offer that. All right. So we're going to put this up for questions, and I'm going to say we'll go to one question that was posed in the chat, and then ask anyone else that has a question to put it in the chat now. Tez, thank you for asking. The question is, for those of us who don't come from a background in contracting/renovation, what is your advice in being able to act quickly, assess cost or renovation, and providing an accurate ARV? It's open to anybody to address.
Well, I think I'll answer real quickly, but I think it just goes back to what we were just talking about. You need to hire somebody in that field that is that professional, because that is their job. To explain to you what is going to cost to be fixed, whether it's aesthetic stuff like painting, changing lighting or a floor, or to major construction. And that is that professional in that field has to answer those questions. You may not have a knowledge of it, but you're putting in your trust, and that's what's building trusted relationships through lenders and all different types of vendors, contractors, title people, attorneys that speak the language of investing. These people that you use have to understand the world that we live in, and that's investments.
There it is. All right. So next question. Thank you, Mickey. And this is open to everybody, but Adrian asked this question. He said, will finding a reliable, I'm going to say a couple of questions in here. Will finding a reliable contractor who knows how to cater with an investor and their criteria be very important in terms of investing? So I think pretty much part of what you just described answer that. Or do you also recommend how much we need to spend on rehab ourselves? If so, what do you think is the best way to learn how much we should be spending on a rehab? Should we call multiple contractors and check on how much they're charging per square foot for flooring, painting, etc.? I think part of that was in what Mickey shared. However, I still put that out to everyone if you wanted to add. Go, Peter.
Peter, let's go ahead. Let's do it.
People are going to like this. For you, ready? If you as the realtor know the ARV, how to finance it, what the construction costs are, do the deal yourself. There's no reason to give the deal away. When an investor calls me and they don't know where to get the money and they don't know how much it's going to cost to fix, they don't know what's what it's going to be when it's done, I'm like, goodbye. You're not a real investor. An investor should come with one level of expertise, either finance or construction or something else, or what are they adding? We as realtors to investors add a really key piece, which is what should the homeowner expect at the end of the deal? What should that finished product look like? If every $400,000 house in Linden has granite, you better have granite in your house. If every $1 million home in Short Hills has Sub-Zero and Thermador, your home better have Thermador, better have those kind of appliances. Our job advising investors is what the property is going to be worth at the end. And we can tell them, don't overspend, because you're only going to get $625,000 to $650,000 for the sale if you match the buyer expectation of every other home in that market at that price point.
There it is.
Because we don't control the contractors. We don't control the subs. Our job is to be the real estate expert, providing them data about what it'll be worth at the end of the project.
All right. Well, thank you for answering that last question out there for the folks on the call. And so now we're going to turn it back to John Palumbo with those questions. And just a heads up, guys, RESPA, right? So wanted to make sure that everybody understands the folks that are on the call. If you are an agent with one of the market centers, our market center, the KW market centers, we are going to be reaching out to the market leadership in terms of, transferring, monies associated with the gift certificate, because we can't give it directly. And then if it is someone that's a guest that's on the call, we will reach out to you as well. All right. So just wanted to give that heads up. So take it away, John.
All right, awesome.
3 questions, 3 gift certificates.
All right, we got 3 more $100 gift certificates coming your way for $100. All right. So next question will be, what is a JV? Explain to me, what is a JV? What does it stand for? What does it mean? Okay. Awesome.
And I'm going to say this to you. We didn't say this on the front side, but I will say that it is one winner per gift certificate. Just want to put that out there.
All right. Thank you, guys. So, you guys know your stuff there. So JV is a joint venture where you're partnering with someone else on a deal where you guys are combining your resources, okay, and bringing in your funds to get a deal done. Let's see who was the first person that answered on that. Let's see. Looks like it was Tez.
I thought, and I was gonna say, was Tez a winner before?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So you got to pick the next name. And Tez, I appreciate that sharpness. You fast at the trigger.
Yeah. And we got The next one was, hold on, let's go back to the chat here. Adrian, again. You guys are quick. Adrian also was a winner in the last one.
All right.
All right, so let's move on to the good job, Adrian. You guys are quick. Anthony got the next one. Anthony Gopal, congratulations.
All right. Fair enough.
Put that down.
Mhm.
All right, guys, next question. I mentioned this in the beginning. Tell me the main three types of financing that are out there for investors.
And I'm going to say Nyla says she was after. Guys, we are going to look back at the sequence of responses in the chat to make sure that we're fair and we got it. Just to share that with everyone. Okay, we want to make sure that we get it right. And I know it's hard, John. Look at all those responses.
Okay. Sorry, Nyla. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
No worries.
It's
No
moving
worries.
so quick, I can't even tell. Okay.
Exactly. Everybody wants to respond, so that's a good thing. We can all use marketing dollars, and I hope that each of the KW agents that is assigned, guys, this is really for you to use this for marketing dollars for command. Get to learn it. Do those ads.
All right, we got Adrian up there again. Adrian was already a winner, so move on to Deep. Yep, Deep would be
the next one.
Yep. You got private hard money, regular meaning conventional. So Deep, congratulations. Those are your three types of financing out there, guys: the hard money, private money. And again, as a smart investor, look at all three options. See what's best for you, and use whatever you have available to you. Okay. All right. The last question, I mentioned this also in the beginning. What are the two main challenges that investors may face? What are the two main challenges that investors may face that they'll share with you?
Nobody wants that money. I don't see anybody.
Okay, good. There you go. The answer is the main challenges for investors finding the deals and finding the money. So the winner on that one would be here. Evgenia.
Yep.
Congratulations, Evgenia. All right, guys, those are your $500 gift certificates that we'll be giving out to you guys. Congratulations to the winners.
We will reach out to each of the winners, and we want to say thank you for everyone that was on the call today. We hope this session was helpful for you. It has been recorded, and so we certainly will be reaching out to you guys to share. All right. So
thank you to our panelists as well.
Thank you to all the panelists on the job.
Thank you, everybody.
You did a wonderful job. Thanks, guys, for your knowledge. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.